Tonight we're going to rewire something fundamental. Something that's been shaping your entire life without you even realizing it. As you lie here in the darkness, I want to tell you something that Carl Jung understood deeply. Something that could change everything about how you experience yourself and your life. The way you see yourself right now, the image you carry of who you are, it's not actually you. It's a construction, a story, a collection of judgments and beliefs that were handed to you by others, and that you've been carrying as if they were truth. But they're not truth. They're just thoughts, conditioning, projections. And tonight, while you sleep, we're going to begin the process of rewiring them. Jung believed that most people live their entire lives without ever seeing themselves clearly. They see themselves through the distorted mirror of other people's opinions, their own harsh judgments, the wounds they've carried since childhood, the failures they've internalized, the criticisms that became their inner voice. And that distorted image, that false self-perception, it shapes everything. It shapes what you believe you're capable of, what you think you deserve, how you show up in relationships, what risks you're willing to take, what dreams you allow yourself to have. It shapes your entire life based on something that isn't even real. So tonight, we're going to start dismantling that false image. We're going to look at where it came from, how it was constructed, and why it's been so persistent. And then, gently, we're going to begin replacing it with something closer to the truth, something closer to who you actually are. Beneath all the conditioning and judgment, this is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming yourself, of shedding the false identities, the imposed beliefs, the distorted self-perceptions, and discovering the self that's been there all along, whole and true. And the beautiful thing, the thing Jung understood, is that this rewiring doesn't require force. It doesn't require you to try harder, or be different, or fix yourself. It happens naturally. When you simply become aware, when you see the false image for what it is, and create space for something truer to emerge. Tonight, as you drift toward sleep, your conscious mind is going to quiet. And in that quiet, in that receptive state, the unconscious becomes more accessible, more open to new patterns, new ways of seeing, new neural pathways that support a healthier, more accurate self-perception. This is not magic. This is how the mind works. Jung understood it. Neuroscience confirms it. When you're in that state between waking and sleeping, when your defenses are down and your critical mind is resting, you're more open to change, more capable of integrating new perspectives, more able to rewire old patterns. So, let's begin. Let's look at the image you're carrying of yourself right now. Not to judge it, not to make it wrong, just to see it clearly, to understand where it came from, and to recognize that it's not the truth of who you are. Close your eyes if you haven't already. Let your body settle into the bed. Let yourself be held by the darkness, the quiet, the safety of this moment. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go, no one you need to be right now. Just breathe, just be here, just let yourself rest while we explore something important together. Now, bring to mind the image you have of yourself, not the image you present to others, but the private image, the one that lives inside you. The one that speaks to you when you're alone, when you've made a mistake, when you're afraid, when you're trying to decide if you're worthy of something. What does that image say about you? Are you someone who's fundamentally flawed? Someone who tries hard but never quite measures up? Someone who's too much or not enough? Someone who disappoints people? Someone who can't be trusted with good things? Just notice, without judging. What's the basic message of your self-image? What does it tell you about who you are and what you're capable of? For many people, the image is harsh. It's critical. It sees mostly flaws and failures and inadequacies. It keeps a running tally of everything you've done wrong, every way you've fallen short, every person you've let down, including yourself. And that voice, that critical internal voice, it feels so real, so authoritative, so much like truth, that you've probably never questioned it. You've just assumed that's who you are. That's the reality. That's what everyone else sees too. But Jung would tell you something different. He would tell you that the voice, that harsh self-image, it's not yours. It's not even about you, really. It's a collection of other people's voices, other people's judgments, other people's projections that you internalized when you were young, when you didn't know any better, when you needed to make sense of how you were being treated. Let me explain what Jung meant. When you were a child, you were completely dependent on your caregivers. You needed them for survival, for love, for a sense of safety and worth. And because you needed them so much, you couldn't afford to see them clearly. You couldn't afford to recognize that maybe they were limited, or wounded, or projecting their own issues onto you. So instead, when they criticized you, when they were harsh with you, when they didn't see you or value you the way you needed, you didn't blame them. You blamed yourself. You decided there must be something wrong with you. That's why they're treating you this way. That's why you're not getting what you need. And that decision, that internalization of their treatment as evidence of your inadequacy, that became the foundation of your self-image. You took their voices, their judgments, their projections, and you made them your own. You made them the truth about who you are. Jung called this the superego. It's the internalized parent, the internalized authority, the voice that judges you from the inside. And for most people, that voice is much harsher than any external voice, because it's constant. It's always there, watching, evaluating, finding you lacking. But here's what Jung understood, and this is crucial. That voice, that harsh self-image, it's not truth. It's just internalized conditioning. It's a recording that's been playing for so long you've forgotten it's a recording. You think it's reality. You think it's who you are. But it's not. It never was. It was just the best way your young psyche could make sense of difficult experiences. And now, as an adult, you have the capacity to see it differently, to recognize the voice for what it is, and to choose not to believe it anymore. This is where the rewiring begins. Not by fighting the voice, not by trying to replace negative thoughts with positive ones, but by simply recognizing, this is not me, this is not truth, this is conditioning, this is the internalized critic, this is the wound speaking, not the self. And in that recognition, in that moment of seeing clearly, something shifts. The voice doesn't have the same power. The self-image doesn't feel quite so solid. You create a little bit of space, a little bit of distance, between who you actually are and the story you've been telling yourself about who you are. This space, Jung would say, this is sacred ground. This is where transformation happens, in the gap between the old identity and whatever comes next. In the space where you're no longer completely identified with the harsh self-image, but you haven't yet discovered the truer image that's waiting beneath it. And tonight, as you rest, as you drift towards sleep, this space is going to expand. You're going to rest in the not knowing. You're going to let the old image soften without rushing to replace it. You're going to trust that something truer is already there, already whole, just waiting for you to notice it. But first, let's look a little more at how the distorted self-image was created. Because understanding this, really understanding it, is part of what allows you to let it go. You didn't create your self-image in a vacuum. You created it in relationship, in response to how you were treated, how you were seen, how you were valued or not valued. And that means your self-image is fundamentally relational. It's about how you learn to see yourself through other people's eyes. Jung understood this deeply. He understood that we develop our sense of self in the mirror of other people's responses to us. When we're young, we look to our caregivers to tell us who we are, to reflect back to us our worth, our lovability, our acceptability. And if they see us clearly, if they love us well, if they reflect back our inherent worth, then we develop a healthy self-image. We learn that we're valuable just as we are, that we're worthy of love, that we belong, that we're enough. But if they can't see us clearly, if they're too wounded or distracted or limited to reflect our worth accurately, then we internalize a distorted image. We learn that we're only valuable if we perform, if we achieve, if we make ourselves small, if we meet their needs, if we become who they want us to be instead of who we actually are. And that distorted image, that conditional worth, that becomes the lens through which you see yourself, not just in childhood, but for decades afterward, maybe for your entire life, unless you do the work of recognizing it and rewiring it. So right now, as you lie here, I want you to consider, where did your self-image come from? Whose voice is really speaking when you criticize yourself? Whose expectations are you trying to meet? Whose judgments did you internalize as truth about yourself? Just notice. You don't have to analyze it all tonight. You don't have to figure it all out. Just notice. Become aware. See if you can recognize. Oh, that's my father's voice. That's what my mother always said. That's the message I got at school. That's what happened when I failed at that thing. The self-image you're carrying, it has a history. It came from somewhere. And recognizing where it came from, seeing that it's not who you are, but what was done to you, what was projected onto you. This recognition is already beginning to rewire your perception. Because when you see that the harsh self-image isn't truth, that it's just conditioning, just internalized voices, just projections from people who couldn't see you clearly, then you're no longer completely identified with it. You're no longer completely believing it. And in that space of not believing, in that space of questioning, new possibilities emerge. What if I'm not fundamentally flawed? What if I'm not too much or not enough? What if I'm actually okay exactly as I am? What if the harsh image was wrong all along? These questions, Jung would say, these are the questions that begin to liberate you. Not because you need to answer them definitively tonight, but because asking them creates space, creates doubt in the old story, creates an opening for something truer to reveal itself. So, just rest with these questions. Let them float in your awareness as you drift towards sleep. You don't need to resolve anything. You don't need to figure anything out. Just let the questions be there. Let them work on you at a level deeper than conscious thought. Your unconscious mind, Jung believed, is wiser than your conscious mind. It knows the truth about who you are. It's not confused by the conditioning or the projections or the harsh self-judgments. It knows the self that's always been whole, always been here, always been enough. And tonight, as you sleep, your unconscious is going to do the work of integrating what you're learning. It's going to continue the process of rewiring, of letting go of the false image, of making space for the true image to emerge. You don't have to make it happen. You just have to allow it. You just have to be willing to question the old story, to recognize it as conditioning rather than truth, and to rest in the space of not knowing, trusting that something truer is already present, already whole, already here. Breathe. Let your body relax more deeply. Let your mind begin to drift. Let yourself float in this space between waking and sleeping, where the old patterns can soften, where new neural pathways can form, where the rewiring happens naturally, effortlessly, as you rest. You're doing the work just by being here, just by listening, just by being willing to question the harsh self-image you've been carrying. That willingness, that openness, that's all that's needed. The rest happens on its own, in its own time, in its own way. Jung trusted the psyche's natural movement toward wholeness. He believed that if you create the right conditions, if you bring awareness to what's false, the psyche naturally moves toward what's true. It naturally heals, naturally integrates, naturally becomes whole. And tonight, you're creating those conditions. You're becoming aware of the false self-image. You're recognizing it as conditioning. You're questioning it. And in that questioning, in that awareness, the rewiring has already begun. Just rest now. Just let yourself be held by the darkness, by the quiet, by the knowing that something in you is already changing, already shifting, already moving toward a truer self-perception. You don't have to see it yet. You don't have to understand it fully. You just have to trust that it's happening, that your mind is rewiring even now as you rest, as you drift, as you let go of the need to control or understand or force anything. The work is being done. The transformation is happening, and all you have to do is rest and allow and trust. Let your breath be slow and easy. Let your body sink deeper into the bed. Let your mind become quiet, soft, spacious, open to what's emerging, open to what's true, open to the self that's been here all along, waiting for you to see it clearly. You're safe. You're held. You're exactly where you need to be. And the rewiring, the transformation, the liberation from the harsh self-image, it's already underway. Just rest. Just breathe. Just be. Everything else is being taken care of. Everything else is happening naturally, as you drift, as you let go, as you trust the process. You're doing beautifully. You're exactly on track. And tomorrow, when you wake, something will have shifted. Something will be different. Something truer will have begun to emerge. For now, just rest. Just sleep. Just let yourself be, held by the knowing that you're being rewired, restored. Return to the truth of who you actually are. There's something else Jung understood about self-perception, something that most people never realize. He understood that the way you see yourself isn't just one voice. It's a chorus, a collection of voices, each one representing a different person, a different experience, a different wound that left its mark. And these voices, they don't agree with each other. Some say you're too much. Others say you're not enough. Some say you're too sensitive. Others say you're too cold. Some say you need to try harder. Others say you're trying too hard, already exhausting yourself. It's contradictory. It's confusing. And it keeps you trapped. Because no matter what you do, no matter how you show up, one of those voices is going to tell you you're doing it wrong. Jung would say this is the fragmented self, the self that's been split into pieces by all the different expectations, all the different judgments, all the different versions of you that different people needed you to be. And as long as you're trying to satisfy all those voices, you can never be whole. You can never be yourself, because yourself, your actual self, it's not any of those voices. It's not the harsh critic or the people pleaser or the perfectionist or the one who's never good enough. Those are all adaptations, survival strategies, roles you learn to play. But they're not you, the real you, the self that Jung talked about. It exists beneath all those voices. It's whole. It's integrated. It's not fragmented by contradictory demands. It simply is. And one of the most important parts of rewiring your self-perception is learning to distinguish between the voices of conditioning and the quiet knowing of the self. Tonight, as you drift deeper into rest, we're going to practice that distinction. We're going to listen beneath the noise of all those competing voices and see if we can sense something else, something quieter, something truer, something that's been here all along. Let your breath slow. Let your body relax more deeply. Let yourself sink into the bed, into the darkness, into this moment where nothing is required of you, where you don't have to be anything for anyone, where you can just be. And in this space, I want you to notice something. When all the voices quiet down, when you're not trying to be anyone, when you're not performing or proving or defending, what's left? Just you, just being, just the simple fact of your existence, your breath, your heartbeat, your awareness. This is the self, not the constructed identity, not the collection of roles and adaptations, just this presence, this being here. Jung believed that most people spend their entire lives so identified with their constructed identity, with the voices and roles and adaptations, that they never experience the self directly. They never know what it's like to just be, without all the commentary, without all the judgment, without all the striving to become someone other than who they are. And because they never experience the self, they keep looking for themselves in external validation, in achievement, in relationships, in other people's approval, always searching for something that would finally make them feel whole, finally make them feel okay, finally make them feel like they're enough. But Jung understood, and this is crucial, that what you're looking for isn't out there. It's not in anyone else's opinion of you. It's not in any achievement or relationship or external validation. It's here. It's been here all along. It's just been obscured by all the voices, all the conditioning, all the false beliefs about who you are. So the work isn't to become someone different. The work is to remove the obstacles to seeing yourself clearly, to quiet the voices, to let go of the false beliefs, to strip away the layers of conditioning until what remains is simply you, the self, whole and true. And this process, this stripping away, it doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It can happen gently, naturally, as you simply become aware of what's false and allow it to fall away. Tonight, that's what's happening. As you rest here, as you listen, as you allow yourself to question the harsh self-image you've been carrying, the false beliefs are beginning to loosen their grip. The voices are beginning to quiet, and the self, your true nature, is beginning to emerge. You might not feel it dramatically. You might not have some big revelation. That's okay. The rewiring is happening at a deeper level. At the level of the unconscious, where new neural pathways are forming, where old patterns are being released, where your psyche is reorganizing itself around something truer. Jung trusted this process. He trusted that the psyche knows how to heal, how to integrate, how to move toward wholeness, if we just create the conditions for it. And the conditions are simple: awareness, acceptance, and a willingness to let go of what's no longer serving you. You're creating those conditions right now. You're becoming aware of the false self-image. You're accepting that it's not your fault that you internalized these harsh beliefs, and you're willing to let them go, to make space for something truer. That willingness, that openness, that's all that's needed. The rest happens naturally, as you sleep, as you rest, as you allow your mind to rewire itself. Now, let's talk about something important, something that might be making it hard for you to let go of the harsh self-image. Even though it hurts, even though it limits you, part of you might be holding on to it because it serves a purpose, a function, a way of keeping you safe. Jung understood this. He understood that we don't hold on to painful beliefs for no reason. We hold on to them because at some point, they helped us make sense of our experience. They helped us survive. They helped us maintain connection with people we needed. For example, if the people who were supposed to love you couldn't see your worth, if they criticized you or neglected you or treated you as if you were a burden, your young psyche had to make sense of that. And the sense it made was, there must be something wrong with me. That's why they're treating me this way. And that belief, as painful as it was, it actually served a function. It allowed you to maintain hope. Because if the problem is you, then maybe you can fix it. Maybe if you try harder, if you're better, if you become who they want you to be, then they'll love you. Then you'll finally be enough. But if the problem is them, if they're just not capable of loving you well, then there's nothing you can do. Then you're powerless. Then you have to face the devastating reality that the people who were supposed to care for you couldn't or wouldn't. And that's unbearable when you're young. So you take on the harsh self-image. You make yourself the problem because that gives you some sense of control, some sense that if you just fix yourself, everything will be okay. And now, years later, decades later, you're still carrying that belief. You're still trying to fix yourself, still trying to become good enough, still operating from the assumption that there's something fundamentally wrong with you. But here's what Jung would tell you. That belief, that harsh self-image, it's not serving you anymore. It served a purpose once. It helped you survive. But now, it's just keeping you small, keeping you trapped, keeping you from knowing the truth of who you actually are. And you can let it go. You can recognize that it was never true. It was just the best way your young psyche could make sense of an impossible situation. And now, as an adult, you have other resources, other ways of understanding what happened. You don't need that belief anymore. But letting it go requires grieving. It requires acknowledging that the people who were supposed to see your worth didn't or couldn't, and that's not your fault. It was never your fault. But it is your loss, and that loss deserves to be felt, to be honored, to be mourned. Jung believed that grief is how we metabolize loss. It's how we let go of what we didn't receive so we can make space for what is. And part of rewiring your self-perception is grieving the accurate reflection you didn't get, the validation you deserved but never received, the childhood where you were seen and valued for who you actually were. That grief might be here as you rest tonight. If it is, let it be here. Let yourself feel it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to make it mean anything. Just let it move through you. Let the sadness, the anger, the longing, whatever's here, let it be here. This is part of the healing. This is part of the rewiring. Because as you grieve what you didn't receive, you're also letting go of the belief that you didn't deserve it. You're recognizing that the problem was never you. And in that recognition, the harsh self-image begins to crumble. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to be loved well. Not because you were perfect, not because you earned it, but simply because you existed. Because you were a child who needed love. Because your worth was inherent, not conditional. And that worth, it's still here. It was never lost. It was just obscured by all the false beliefs, all the harsh judgments, all the internalized voices that told you otherwise. But beneath all of that, your worth has always been here, whole and intact, just waiting for you to remember it. Tonight, you're beginning to remember. You're beginning to see that the harsh self-image was a lie, that you were never the problem, that you've always been worthy, always been enough, always been deserving of love and acceptance, exactly as you are. This knowing, this recognition, it might feel fragile right now. It might feel like something you can almost glimpse but not quite hold on to. That's okay. It's growing. It's strengthening as you continue to question the old beliefs, as you continue to grieve what you didn't receive, as you continue to rest in the truth of your inherent worth. The new self-perception is taking root, and your unconscious mind, Jung would say, Your unconscious is already reorganizing itself around this new truth. It's already creating new neural pathways, new patterns of thinking, new ways of seeing yourself that are based on reality instead of on conditioning. You don't have to force this. You don't have to make it happen. It's happening on its own as you sleep, as you rest, as you allow the old beliefs to fall away and something truer to emerge. Let your body relax even more deeply now. Let any tension you're holding, any effort, any trying, just release. Let yourself be completely supported by the bed, by the darkness, by this moment. There's nothing you need to do, nothing you need to figure out, nothing you need to become. You're already whole, you're already worthy, you're already enough, not because you've earned it, not because you've proven it, but because that's the truth of who you are. That's the self that's been here all along, beneath all the false beliefs, beneath all the harsh judgments, beneath all the conditioning. And as you drift deeper into sleep, that self is becoming more visible, more accessible, more real to you. The voices of conditioning are fading, the harsh self-image is softening, and what's emerging is simply you, clear and true and whole. Jung called this the transcendent function, the psyche's natural ability to move beyond the conflict of opposites, to integrate what's been split, to find wholeness where there was fragmentation. And this function, this movement toward integration, it's active in you right now, as you rest, as you allow, as you trust the process. You might wake up tomorrow and not consciously remember everything we've explored tonight. That's okay. The work is happening at a deeper level than conscious memory. Your unconscious is integrating it, rewiring your neural patterns, reorganizing your self-perception around something truer. And over time, over the coming days and weeks, you'll notice shifts, small at first, maybe, but real. You'll find yourself less caught up in harsh self-judgment, less controlled by the critical voice, more able to see yourself with compassion, with accuracy, with the recognition of your inherent worth. You'll find yourself making different choices, choices that honor who you actually are, instead of choices based on trying to become good enough. You'll find yourself more present, more at peace, more comfortable in your own skin, because you're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer trying to fix something that was never broken. This is what rewiring your self-perception makes possible. This is what Jung understood, that when you see yourself clearly, when you recognize your worth, when you let go of the false beliefs and the harsh judgments, everything changes. Your relationships change, your choices change. Your entire experience of being alive changes. Because you're no longer trying to earn your right to exist. You're no longer trying to prove your worth. You're just here, being yourself. And that's enough. That's always been enough. You just needed to remember it. Tonight is part of that remembering. Tonight is part of the rewiring. And every night that you rest with this understanding, every time you question the harsh self-image and return to the truth of your worth, you're strengthening the new neural pathways. You're making the true self-perception more solid, more real, more integrated. This is the work, and you're doing it just by being here, just by listening, just by being willing to see yourself differently. You're rewiring your mind. You're transforming your self-perception. You're becoming free. Let yourself rest deeply now. Let yourself sink into sleep knowing that the work is being done. The transformation is happening, and when you wake, something will have shifted. Something will be different. Something truer will have taken root. For now, just breathe. Just be. Just let yourself be held by the knowing that you're worthy. You're whole. You're enough. Exactly as you are. Always have been. Always will be. The voices of conditioning can't reach you here. The harsh judgments can't touch the truth of who you are. You're safe. You're held. You're exactly where you need to be. And the rewiring continues as you sleep, as you rest, as you trust. Just let go now. Let yourself drift. Let your mind become quiet, spacious, open to the truth that's emerging, open to the self that's been here all along, whole and worthy and true. Everything is unfolding exactly as it needs to. You're exactly on track, and tomorrow you'll wake a little more free, a little more yourself, a little more at home in your own being. Sleep well, sleep deeply, sleep knowing you're enough. You've always been enough, and the rewiring is helping you remember. As you rest here, drifting deeper now, I want to tell you about something Jung discovered, something profound about how self-perception actually works, and why it's been so hard for you to see yourself clearly. He discovered that we don't actually see ourselves directly. We see ourselves through a lens, a filter, a collection of beliefs and assumptions that were installed in us before we were old enough to question them. And that lens, that filter, it distorts everything. It's like looking at yourself in a funhouse mirror. The reflection looks like you. It has your basic features, but everything is warped, exaggerated, distorted. And if you've been looking in that funhouse mirror your entire life, if it's the only mirror you've ever known, you might not even realize that what you're seeing isn't accurate. You might think that's just what you look like, that's just who you are, and you organize your entire life around that distorted image, never realizing that the problem isn't you. The problem is the mirror. This is what Jung meant when he talked about projection. We project our own unconscious material, our own unresolved issues, our own shadow, onto the world. And then we see it reflected back to us. And we think what we're seeing is objective reality. But it's not. It's our own psyche, our own conditioning, our own wounds, looking back at us. And the same thing happens with self-perception. The way you see yourself, it's not an accurate reflection of who you are. It's a projection, a distortion, a funhouse mirror that was created by the wounds you've carried, the beliefs you've internalized, the voices that have been speaking in your head since you were young. But here's the beautiful thing, the thing Jung understood. Once you recognize that the mirror is distorted, once you see that what you've been looking at isn't the truth, you can choose to look somewhere else. You can choose a different lens, a clearer mirror, a more accurate reflection. And that's what we're doing tonight. We're helping you recognize the distortion. We're showing you that the harsh self-image you've been carrying isn't truth. It's just a warped reflection. And once you see that, once you really see it, you become free to discover what's actually true. So let's talk about what's actually true. Let's talk about who you are beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the distorted self-perception, beneath all the voices that have been telling you who you're supposed to be, who you actually are, the self that Jung pointed toward. It's not defined by your achievements. It's not defined by your failures. It's not defined by other people's opinions of you or your own harsh judgments of yourself. It's not defined by your past or your mistakes or your wounds. The self, your true nature, it simply is. It exists. It's here. It's been here all along. And it's whole. It's not broken or damaged or inadequate. It's just itself, pure being, pure presence, pure aliveness. This might sound abstract. It might sound philosophical. But Jung believed you could actually experience it. You could know it directly, not through thinking, not through analyzing, but through a kind of immediate recognition, a felt sense, a direct knowing. And that direct knowing, it becomes accessible when you quiet the noise, when you let go of all the trying and striving and judging, when you just are, without commentary, without evaluation, without the constant mental narrative about who you are and whether you're good enough. Right now, as you lie here, you're in a perfect state for this recognition. Your conscious mind is quieting. Your defenses are down. Your need to control or understand or make sense of things is releasing. And in that space, in that openness, the self can reveal itself. You might experience it as a sense of peace, or spaciousness, or a quiet knowing that you're okay exactly as you are. You might experience it as a feeling of being held, or connected to something larger than yourself, or simply a sense of being here, alive, present, without all the usual mental noise. However you experience it, however it shows up for you, just let it be. Don't try to grasp it or understand it or make it into something. Just let yourself rest in it. Let yourself be it. Because this is what's true. This is who you actually are. Beneath all the distortion, beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the false beliefs. Jung would say this is the beginning of real transformation. Not transformation where you become someone different, but transformation where you recognize who you've always been, where you see through the distortion and discover the truth that was there all along. And this recognition, this direct knowing of the self, it's what allows the harsh self-image to finally release its grip, because you're no longer just questioning it intellectually. You're not just trying to convince yourself that maybe you're not as bad as you think. You're actually experiencing something truer, something more real, something that contradicts the harsh image at the level of direct experience. This is why the work we're doing tonight, as you rest and drift towards sleep, this is so powerful. Because we're not just working with your conscious mind. We're not just trying to replace negative thoughts with positive ones. We're working at a deeper level. The level of direct experience. The level where real transformation happens. Your unconscious mind, the deeper parts of your psyche. They're being exposed to a different experience of yourself. A truer experience. An experience that contradicts the old conditioning. And that exposure, that direct experience, is what creates new neural pathways. What rewires your self-perception at the deepest level. Let yourself sink deeper now. Let your body become heavier, more relaxed. Let your mind become quieter, more spacious. Let yourself just be here, without trying to be anyone, without trying to prove anything, without the usual mental commentary. Just be. Just breathe. Just notice what it feels like to exist without all the judgments, without all the harsh self-evaluation, without all the voices telling you who you should be or how you're falling short. What's here when all of that is quiet? Just you. Just this. Just the simple fact of being alive, being present, being here. And this, Jung would say, this is the self. This is what's real. This is what's true. And from this place, from this direct experience of the self, you start to see how distorted the harsh self-image really was. You start to see how much energy you've been giving to something that was never true. How much of your life you've organized around a false belief. And that recognition, as painful as it might be to acknowledge how long you've been carrying this burden, that recognition is also liberating. Because it means you can let it go. You can stop believing it. You can stop organizing your life around it. You can come home to what's actually true. Now, I want to acknowledge something important. Something that might be coming up for you as you rest here. As the harsh self-image begins to loosen, as you start to recognize that maybe you're not who you thought you were, there might be some fear, some resistance, some part of you that's afraid to let go of the old identity even though it's been painful. This is normal. Jung understood this. He understood that even painful identities become familiar. And familiar feels safer than unknown, even when the unknown might be better. So part of you might be resisting this transformation, might be afraid of what happens if you let go of the harsh self-image. Who will you be if you're not the person who's fundamentally flawed? Who will you be if you're not the one who has to try so hard? Who has to prove their worth? Who has to earn their right to exist? Who will you be if you're just enough, exactly as you are? These questions can feel threatening because they represent a fundamental shift in how you relate to yourself and to life. They represent letting go of the familiar struggle, the familiar pain, the familiar identity that you've carried for so long. But Jung would tell you, and I'm telling you now, what's on the other side of that fear? What's waiting for you when you let go of the harsh self-image is not emptiness or loss or nothing. What's waiting is freedom and aliveness and the ability to actually live your life instead of constantly trying to prove you deserve to live it. What's waiting is you. The real you, the self that's been obscured by all the conditioning and judgment and false beliefs. And that self, it's so much better than the harsh self-image ever allowed you to believe. So if fear is here, if resistance is here, just acknowledge it. Thank it for trying to protect you, for trying to keep you safe in the only way it knows how. And then, gently, choose to move forward anyway. Choose to let go of the old image, even though it's scary. Choose to trust that what's emerging is truer and better than what you're releasing. This is an act of courage. Jung knew this. He knew that individuation, that becoming yourself, requires tremendous courage, because it means letting go of who you've been, who you've thought you were, who others have told you you are, and trusting that who you actually are, the self beneath all of that, is enough. And it is enough. You are enough. Not in some abstract philosophical way, but in a real, lived, embodied way. You're enough to exist, to take up space, to have needs, to want things, to make mistakes, to be imperfect, to be human, to be exactly who you are. This truth, this recognition of your enoughness, it's being integrated into your psyche right now as you rest. It's being wired into your neural pathways. It's becoming part of how you see yourself at the deepest level, not just as an idea you're trying to believe, but as a lived reality, a felt experience, a direct knowing. And tomorrow, when you wake, you might not consciously remember all of this. You might not feel dramatically different, but something will have changed. Some subtle shift in how you relate to yourself, some softening of the harsh inner critic, some increased capacity to see yourself with compassion instead of judgment. And those small shifts, those subtle changes, they accumulate. They build on each other. They create momentum. And over time, over the coming days and weeks, you'll find that the harsh self-image has less and less power, that you're less caught up in self-judgment, that you're more at home in yourself, more at peace with who you are. This is the rewiring. This is the transformation. And it's happening right now. As you rest, as you allow, as you trust the process, let your breath be slow and easy. Let your body be completely relaxed. Let your mind drift into that spacious, quiet place where transformation happens naturally, where the unconscious does its work of integration and healing and reorganization. You don't have to make anything happen. You don't have to try or control or force. The rewiring is happening on its own. Your psyche knows what to do. Your unconscious knows how to heal, how to integrate, how to move toward wholeness. All you have to do is rest, is allow, is trust, and the transformation unfolds naturally, effortlessly, as part of the psyche's inherent movement toward truth, toward wholeness, toward the self. Jung believed this movement was always happening, always active, always trying to bring us home to ourselves. And our job, our only job, is to get out of the way, to stop interfering with the trying and the judging and the harsh self-criticism, and to let the natural healing process do its work. Tonight, you're doing that. You're getting out of the way. You're allowing the natural process. You're trusting that your psyche knows how to heal, how to rewire, how to move from the distorted self-image to a truer self-perception. And it does know. It's already doing it. The work is happening. The transformation is underway. And all you need to do is rest and sleep and trust. So let yourself go now. Let yourself drift completely into sleep. Let your conscious mind release its hold. Let the deeper parts of your psyche take over. Let the rewiring continue at the level where real change happens. You're safe. You're held. You're exactly where you need to be. And the harsh self-image, the distorted reflection, the false beliefs about who you are, they're dissolving, falling away, making space for something truer to emerge. The self, your true nature, whole and worthy and enough. It's here. It's been here all along. And now, as you sleep, as you rest in this deeper knowing, it's becoming more visible, more real, more integrated into how you see yourself. Sleep deeply, sleep peacefully, sleep knowing that you're being transformed, rewired, restored to the truth of who you actually are. Everything is unfolding perfectly. Everything is exactly as it needs to be. And tomorrow, you'll wake a little more free, a little more yourself, a little closer to seeing yourself clearly. For now, just rest, just sleep, just trust. The work is being done. The transformation is happening. And you, the real you, the self, beneath all the conditioning, you're emerging, whole and true, and beautiful. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Sleep knowing you're enough. You've always been enough. And now you're beginning to remember. As you continue to rest here, drifting even deeper now, I want to show you something else that Jung understood about why the harsh self-image has been so persistent, why it's been so hard to let go. Even when you've tried, it's because the harsh self-image isn't just one thing. It's not just negative thoughts or low self-esteem. It's actually doing something for you. It's serving a function. And part of that function is keeping certain parts of yourself hidden. Parts that you learned were unacceptable. Parts that you rejected. Parts that Jung called the shadow. The shadow, in Jung's understanding, is everything about yourself that you've pushed away. Everything you've decided is bad or wrong or unacceptable. Every quality, every feeling, every desire, every impulse that you learn to hide, to deny, to reject as not you. And here's what most people don't understand. The harsh self-image, the constant self-criticism, the belief that you're fundamentally flawed, it's often connected to the shadow. It's a way of punishing yourself for having those unacceptable parts, for being human in ways you were taught you shouldn't be. So you criticize yourself. You tell yourself you're not good enough. You maintain this harsh self-perception as a way of keeping those shadow parts under control, as if by being harsh enough with yourself, by judging yourself harshly enough, you can somehow eliminate the parts of you that feel threatening or unacceptable. But Jung discovered something profound. The shadow doesn't go away when you reject it. It doesn't disappear when you criticize yourself for having it. It just goes underground. It becomes unconscious. And from there, it actually has more power, more influence over your life. Because you can't see it. You can't work with it. You can't integrate it. And as long as the shadow remains unconscious, as long as those rejected parts of yourself remain hidden, you can't be whole. You can't see yourself accurately, because you're only seeing the parts of yourself that you've decided are acceptable, the parts that fit the image of who you think you should be. But tonight, as you rest here, as your defenses continue to soften, as you become more open to seeing yourself truthfully, we're going to do something that might feel uncomfortable at first, but is absolutely essential for rewiring your self-perception. We're going to look at the shadow. We're going to acknowledge the parts of yourself that you've been rejecting, and we're going to practice accepting them, not acting them out, not letting them control you, but simply acknowledging that they're part of you, part of being human, part of the wholeness that you actually are. Because here's what Jung understood. The parts of yourself that you reject, they don't make you bad. They don't mean there's something wrong with you. They're just human. They're just parts of the full spectrum of human experience, and everyone has them. Everyone has shadow. Everyone has parts they've learned to hide. The difference between people isn't whether they have shadow, it's whether they're willing to acknowledge it, to work with it, to integrate it, or whether they keep rejecting it, keep criticizing themselves for it, keep maintaining a harsh self-image as punishment for being human. And the irony, the thing Jung saw so clearly, is that the more you reject your shadow, the more you criticize yourself for having those unacceptable parts, the more power they have. The more they leak out in unconscious ways, the more they control your life from behind the scenes. But when you acknowledge them, when you bring them into consciousness, when you accept them as part of yourself without judgment, they lose their power. They integrate. They become just one part of the whole, no longer hidden, no longer controlling you, just there, part of who you are. So, let's practice this now. Let's look at some of the parts of yourself that you've been rejecting, and let's see if we can bring a different energy to them. An energy of acceptance, of compassion, of recognition that these parts don't make you bad, they make you human. Maybe you've been rejecting your anger. Maybe you learned that anger is bad, that nice people don't get angry, that if you feel angry it means there's something wrong with you. So you've been pushing it away, criticizing yourself whenever you feel it, maintaining a harsh self-image as punishment for having this unacceptable emotion. But anger, Jung would tell you, anger is just energy. It's information. It tells you when your boundaries have been violated, when something isn't right, when you need to protect yourself or speak up or make a change. And rejecting it, criticizing yourself for feeling it, that doesn't make the anger go away. It just makes it unconscious, where it leaks out in passive-aggressive ways, or turns inward as depression, or explodes unexpectedly. But if you can acknowledge the anger, if you can say, yes, I feel angry sometimes, that's part of being human. That doesn't make me bad. Then the anger can be integrated. It can be felt, processed, used constructively. It's no longer this dangerous thing you have to hide from yourself. Or maybe you've been rejecting your vulnerability, your softness, your need for help. Maybe you learned that you have to be strong all the time, that needing others is weakness, that if you're not completely self-sufficient, there's something wrong with you. So you've been pushing away your vulnerability, maintaining a harsh self-image whenever you feel weak or needy or unable to handle things on your own. But vulnerability, Jung would say, vulnerability is not weakness. It's strength. It's courage. It's the willingness to be real, to be human, to acknowledge that you can't do everything alone, that you need connection, that you need support, that you're not meant to carry everything by yourself. And when you can accept your vulnerability, when you can acknowledge your need for others, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you whole. It makes you capable of real intimacy, real connection, real relationships,